Jackie Capstick, and I am your host of The Natural Healing Reel. Today, my guest is Fiona Cutts. And Fiona, like most of us, has been in the society's corporate climbing of, doing what we all do, getting into the corporate world and climbing the ladder and working as hard as we can. And, unfortunately for Fiona, she hit a glitch where she just got stopped in her body and got the chronic fatigue and had to relook at her whole life. And so through that, a real big gift was given to her. And that's what we're here to talk about today. She has come across and become a facilitator of access consciousness. And it's really incredible. So I would love for her to share all of this with us so that we can tap into this easy way of getting an easy way of our health and thoughts back to ourselves. So welcome, Fiona.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Really happy to be here. And thank you for the introduction. It was funny when you said that Fiona unfortunately got stopped and got ill. And so for years, I heard people saying, oh, this was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I could never say it because it was so difficult being ill for so long. And now, you know what, it's far enough maybe in the past that I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful that it happened, because it's like my life now is greater than ever before. So finally, I can say that I'm grateful for the illness and the being stopped in my tracks.
That's what everybody says, right? The other side of
be a bit longer.
The big tragedy is always a big blessing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And yeah, as I said, maybe it just took me a little bit longer to see it, because I think that when you're in it, 6 years of being really depleted, and for some of the time I couldn't go out of the house. It's a long time, and it's a bit of an ask to be grateful to that when you're in it or close to it, I guess. But I see it completely.
Figure out what's wrong with you, right? And people looking at you going, well, you look fine, probably, right?
Yes.
Chronic fatigue.
Yes.
Not like you. Yeah.
It's funny because people did say that to me at the time. And when I look at myself now, despite being older, of course, it's like there's much more vitality and aliveness and enthusiasm for living when I see a picture of me now than when I look at how I was then. But you're right, they call it an invisible illness, don't they? When you can't really see that you have it.
Yeah. It's, I think, the same as what I went through with having concussions and then just a lot of trauma. Too many deaths in a row of too many close people, and it's like it damages the brain, right? It's just too much. But your outside looks fine, and so people just they look at you and don't know what's wrong with you, right? Yeah,
that's right. Which at the time is really painful, of course, because there's all that, I'd forgotten about this, but there's all this sort of stuff in your head as well as the physical symptoms. You have that, well, am I going a bit crazy? So it's like it's part of the mix of all the things that are difficult to handle, I would say.
Yeah. I think when we start questioning ourselves, then we're down the rabbit hole, right?
Yes,
absolutely. That's a really yucky place to be.
Yes, it is.
So give us a little bit of your bio. You were a shy little girl growing up.
Yes. Yeah, I was very shy, and I guess my dad was quite a critical man, and I think I learned very early on that the best strategy in my family was to play small and be what he wanted me to be. So I was as well as being shy, I was very bright. So I pushed myself academically. And what I realized was not just at school, but when I started my university career and then in the corporate world, I was actually trying to live his life, not a life that had anything to do with me. So I became an accountant. And in a way, I mean, I created it in a way that worked for me. I mean, my degree was in French and German, and for a while I was flitting off around Europe, speaking all these languages, doing the accounting in a fun way for me. But in the end, it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. So after a bit working in the corporate world and then the charity world, that was when I actually got really ill. And what I see now is that there were huge parts of myself that I just was not expressing. It's like I was living from here upwards, I was good at being an accountant and good at forcing myself to live the corporate life. And I thought I was looking after my body, but actually I was exercising without really being in communion with my body. It was like my head was deciding what would be good for my body. The same with what I was eating. I was reading what was healthy, but it wasn't really anything to do with what my body wanted. And so, yeah, I ended up seemingly from one day to the next, that's what it felt like, suddenly coming down with mysterious illness, chronic fatigue syndrome. And I say seemingly because now that I've become a therapist, a healer, a facilitator, I can see all those threads and strands that led me to illness. And quite honestly, I was really ignoring my body. And that's what can occur, that the body can speak in whispers. And then if we don't listen, it's like the wake-up calls become really, really loud. And so in my case, it was fatigue. As we know, for other people, it can be cancer or whatever that is. It's like the body, this is my sense, the body finally speaks loudly enough that we have to listen.
And I've read that most of our illnesses that end up turning into dis-ease is just not loving ourselves. And, so here you are, you're saying that you're living from, kind of here up. How many of us are doing that, right? Not understanding that we're not, because I don't know that we've been really taught anything other than that. Like, how did you come to that awareness that was what was happening?
Yeah, I guess what happened when I first got ill was that I prided myself that I guess I went to see my doctor first, and the doctor pretty much said to me, "Oh, it's good that you like holistic stuff because we can't really help you. We can help you manage it, but you're not likely to get better." And to be honest, it's like when I look at where I am now, it wasn't really into holistic stuff. What I hoped was that homeopathy or herbal remedies would be kind of like something that I could drink down and would get me better. And so it was almost like I was treating the alternatives like conventional, but priding myself on being alternative. And I remember going to a homeopath when I was first ill, and yeah, I needed to do more work on myself. It wasn't just a question of finding the right remedy or the right herbal this or that. And what occurred for me, I would say, over those years of being ill was that I would try something, it would seem to work, I would get discouraged. And then I always had this resilience and I would always start looking again. But I would say after 3 or 4 years of being ill, maybe I'm a slow learner, I don't know. After 3 or 4 years of being ill, I really got to the point where I was really willing to look at me and what I had done to create the situation with my body. And people can say that that's a cruel thing to say, that we create what goes on in our bodies. I'm like, it's like a hallelujah thing for me, because if we can create it, we can uncreate it. And so I guess by taking responsibility and not looking outside of me, that was when I actually found out from a friend about an energy healer. And I went to see this lady, and, knowing nothing really about energy healing, after an hour and a half with her, I knew that I was going to get better. I could tell that this amazing stuff she was doing would get me better. But I also knew that I wanted to be one. I wanted to be an energy healer without knowing what it was. And that was part of the problem that I was in, that I didn't want to be an accountant anymore, but had no idea what direction I wanted my life to go in. So I think knowing that I wanted to be an energy healer gave me something to live for, which I think is also part of the recovery journey, because it's like if I had just had that blankness of not wanting to be an accountant but not knowing what I wanted, there isn't anything to be enthusiastic about and to wake up in the morning feeling happy about living. And so energy healing gave me all of that, and I did 3 years training, working with different energetic means to balance the body and the aura. So we did things like we worked with chakras, we worked with the energy field, and we also did a lot of cathartic work. So we would bash pillows and cushions and shout. It was in the Welsh countryside in this mad Gothic building, and which we had all to ourselves, so nobody else had to hear us screaming. And it was amazing. By the end of it, I felt I was better, but actually then what occurred was I set up my healing practice and I got bored, actually. And that was when I was looking for something more. And that's when I found Access Consciousness. And for me, Access Consciousness encompassed what I had with energy healing, but went beyond it. So I chose to train as a facilitator quite quickly because I could see the power of the tools. And the way we talk about Access Consciousness, the summary is that it's tools and techniques that empower you to change any part of your life that isn't working. So it can be about the body and illness, or it can be about your financial situation, your relationship, whether you feel happy or not, whether you're stressed or not. It can be about all the different aspects of life and living.
And so what are the tools and what actually happens there? So I come in and I'm like, okay, I'm unhappy with my relationship, or I want to create some more money. I'm stuck in this place.
Yeah.
And so what would make me want to even address that?
Yeah, great question. So there are many different aspects to Access Consciousness, and the way it started was through the founder, Gary Douglas, receiving some information. Basically, he was channeling at the time, and he received some information about points on the head, 32 points on the head, that relate to different parts of life and living. So there's a point that relates to healing. There's a point that relates to money. And as those points are gently touched, the limiting points of view that you have in those areas, so to talk about those two, it may be with healing. Definitely, I picked up points of view that chronic fatigue couldn't be healed. And so just touching that point can start to release those limiting points of view. Or with money, I mean, I learned money doesn't grow on trees. It's hard to earn money. That can release through the gentle touch therapy it's called the Access Consciousness bars. And it's called the bars because so here I'm touching the 2 money points, and there's like an energetic energy bar that goes across the head, and touching the point releases the energetic component of the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that keep us stuck. So it's kind of magical, really. It's very, very gone.
And so so you do that and you feel like a real shift that happens in that area just from kind of like a one session?
Yes, I mean, the main thing that people notice during the session is that it feels good. It tends to feel really relaxing and really nurturing. Because it's funny, isn't it? Because I guess it's quite, in a way, quite an intimate part of the body to be touching the head, and it feels very nurturing. And then what happens is that different parts of your life can change. And that can happen after one session. And sometimes people require more than one session to get the change that they require. But it's very common for somebody to come because they have a money problem, but because we touch all kinds of points and everything is connected, different things can also shift in people's lives, which maybe they didn't even know they wanted to shift.
Right. Now, so my understanding is that our thoughts and our stories are what create these unconscious thoughts and stories that are going on. So I've been working on reprogramming and kind of listening and taking out things that are true, right? That we're just, like you said, money doesn't grow on trees. Like these statements that we hear or we perceive throughout our life that just get locked in and create all kinds of blocks that we're unaware of. So is that what it's kind of doing without having to go in and find those stories, and or do you still have to?
Yeah.
Do you still have to find them and kind of put in a new story to our thoughts?
No, you don't necessarily have to revisit whatever created. So sometimes there may be trauma from the past to do with, say, money or something. You don't have to revisit that. And you don't even have to know what the limiting beliefs are. I mean, I've let go of things that I almost didn't know that I had, but when you live your life, you find yourself showing up in a different way. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I did have something that was a bit wonky in that area. And sometimes you will have memories of the past, and sometimes you make some people, it doesn't tend to happen with me, but some people will get little flashes of memories releasing when their bars are touched. So it's different for everyone.
Interesting. So you're a practitioner, you're a facilitator, you're a teacher. So if somebody wanted to go, they would find a facilitator to go and have a session done for themselves.
Yes, I mean,
is that an easy thing to find?
Yes, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I'd like to try the Access Consciousness bars, you can go to the Access Consciousness website, which is accessconsciousness.com, and you can search for practitioners in your area. And it's in most countries on our planet, and and you're likely to find someone fairly close to you there. I think there are 10,000 people who teach it, and so there must be way more than that who offer sessions. So it's you're likely to find someone close to you if you look on the website.
There's 10,000 people that teach it. So, and I've never heard of it, which I love all this stuff. I'm a little bit of a junkie for learning all about healing and what's out there and what's new, and because this stuff really is it's amazing, and there's so many different things that we can do for ourselves, right? So I'm really grateful to have come across this, because I want to try that. I mean, you go and it sounds like is it like a bit of a Reiki type session that it would feel like you just lay there and relax, and somebody they'd actually be touching you though. So
yes, so the session is basically touching different parts of the head. And so typically a session lasts 60 to 90 minutes. And during that time, 32 points are touched. And it tends to, I mean, for me, I'm normally still aware of what's going on around me, but I kind of relax into a different space. And sometimes I just zone out completely, fall asleep, maybe snore, who knows, but you do hear people snoring. It's just very, very, very relaxing. I love receiving it.
Nice. That sounds wonderful. So what else do you want to, what else can you share about, what does our audience need to know more about this? Like, so you go for one treatment, you kind of relax, you have your bars, these access points touched, and then how often do you go back? Like, is it?
So it's really personal. It's like there are people who, I mean, like me, I'm actually in Croatia at the moment attending an Access Consciousness class. So I have 5 days of being in class, and I've had my bars run 3 times, I think. And there are people who have them run every day, because we're all there in class together and we can just swap bars. So we take advantage of that. Normally I don't have that. You know, I don't have like 100 other people who can run my bars just on tap. But I do like to receive bars once a week. What I find is that it just keeps me happy and stress-free. But that's me, and some other people might. It really, really varies. I mean, I don't tend to see one-on-one clients so much anymore. But when I was, it's like some people would be like, yes, once a month, that's great for me. Some people would come when they have some issue in their life. And then there are other people who just love it and who decide to train in it. And when you train in it, you can then swap bars with your friends. So that's something that a lot of us do as well, so that we can receive it more. So I guess it depends who you are. It's like for some people, they just like to come and lie down once every few weeks. And then some people are like, wow, I really love this. And it's like, it's quite, I've had people choose to learn the bars who know nothing about healing, but who want to be able to offer something to their friends. Or so it's quite empowering to be able to learn it just in a one-day class.
What does a session of this cost? Is it something that is affordable to go once a week? I'm sure it's not covered under medical.
No, I don't think it is. I think it should be, but that's my point of view. Everybody should have it. That's my point of view. It really depends. It really depends. So there isn't a set price. So people will charge what works for them in a way, and based on where they're living, what the what other massages or Reiki costs based on that. So it's I guess it's well, I guess if you look on if you're interested in this and you look on the website and you find 2 or 3 people, you can just ask them what they charge. It really isn't easy for me to even give a ballpark, because it's very different for different
but
people.
Probably similar to a massage or a Reiki treatment, sort of in that ballpark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's kind of the same amount of time, and yeah.
Yes.
So you
right.
are now teaching. You're not doing one-on-one, you're teaching to a larger audience now?
Yes, I mean, it's partly my lifestyle. I am, since COVID, I've actually been traveling. I chose to leave the United Kingdom, and I've been sort of moving around quite a bit. And so I nowadays teach different kinds of access classes. So so within Access Consciousness, there are general classes like the bars, and then there's a 4-day class which has tools for happy living, I guess that's the way to put it. And then I also specialize in the voice and confidence. And as you said, I was extremely shy growing up. And when I heard that there was a class in Access Consciousness about the voice and confidence and speaking up, I knew that I had to be there, even though it pushed every single button in my world. I knew I had to be there. And so I went to the class, and it was very, very challenging for me to be there. And I can't explain why, but there was something that was just very difficult for me to hear about speaking up and being heard, and knowing that my voice was valuable in a way that was very hard for me to hear. And so I kind of got through the class. I can't say I enjoyed it, but I got through it. And then in the weeks and, well, I guess 2 or 3 months that followed, it was absolutely amazing. I started to find that I could express myself with way more ease. I could write with way more ease. And I started talking about the classes I was doing. and not hiding so much and showing up on social media and even doing videos, which was unheard of for me. And so within 3 months of doing this class, I have to teach it. The change has been just so dramatically quick and amazing for me. I have to teach it. So 6 months. Yeah.
So what is, so the voice consciousness, what is different? What do you do that's different from the access points?
Yes, so what we do in a voice class is in a live class, we tend to have a stage in the room, and we've been doing them a lot online. So when we do them online, it's like Zoom is our stage. So let's talk about the live classes. So in the live classes, people are invited to come up on stage, and I'm able to see where they hesitate to express themselves, see where they're stopping themselves really, and help them to change that. So, and beyond that, what also gets created is a way of engaging with the audience. So that goes beyond tools and techniques in a way. It's a way of showing up as you. That's the best way I can put it.
And you can help them just by watching them,
it's by watching them, and by, so some of the facilitation is, so basically part of access consciousness is using verbal processes and techniques to release things from the past that have created problems, if you like. I don't quite like that word. Let's use the word problem. So for me, when I was growing up, my dad was verbally quite abusive, and so I learnt to hide away. So the bars helped me to release some of that, but also these verbal processes can kind of go back in time and release the energy from that kind of thing. So that, and it all shows up in our voice. It's like our voice is like the intimate expression of who we be. So if there have been things that have occurred in the past like that, being told to shut up, being told to not be joyful, and me really deliberately deciding to hide because it kept me safe, all of that comes through in the voice. So it's like decades later, we find that even though I loved access consciousness, it was difficult for me to talk about it. And actually that was still because I was behaving like the frightened 5-year-old girl. And we have tools and techniques that can release that.
Wow. Well, I could sign up for that course. I think a lot of us have, the not enough, right? Especially, even, it seems to me that even people that I meet that had the perfect upbringing still have the issues of, if they didn't get the A, that then they were beating themselves up because they didn't get the A that they normally get. So they're not getting, I came from a very dysfunctional home, and my parents were amazing and did their best, and they just, when we know better, we do better. But yeah, it's incredible the damage. And they say that even doesn't matter how far along we come, we're still, our children are still getting some kind of messages of not enough, or, I don't know. I think that as we clear our stuff, then maybe we clear it for them as well, right? Is my hope.
I love to see. It's like some of my friends who are access consciousness facilitators, they're bringing up their children very differently. And are they perfect parents? No, I don't think. I don't have children, but a perfect parent doesn't exist. And are they, in general, more empowering than parents of my generation? And I would say yes. I see many examples of my friends who are way more empowering, and I see these kids. We have some kids in the class that I'm in at the moment, and they're so different. It's like they're receiving these messages of you're good enough, you're enough. yes, their parents aren't always going to be perfectly giving that, but they have it enough that they're so different and so confident from how I was, definitely. So I mean, that really gives me hope for the future.
Yeah, that's really big. Really big. I think that I was listening to, and I can't remember her name, but Conscious Parenting, Sheffield, I think. Anyways, and how she talks about raising kids, and how most of us are just trying to make that person or that child be what we weren't, or it's I listen to her and I think, oh my goodness, no wonder everybody's screwing their children up, because we have no idea what the hell we're doing. Everybody's trying to fit into that box, and we're not all meant to fit into that box. I mean, I think some kids fit in there nicely, but ones that don't, it's really a messy situation, right? The aftermath of that is, yeah. So I really like that. I think that's very powerful. I mean,
yeah.
And to be able to speak, I think you're right. Like learning how to even just do this video for me, I'd never done anything like that, or the selfies, or right. Yes. So I'm sure I could use some voice work myself growing up as kind of, not enough in my world, right?
Well, it's interesting. One of the things that I love to say in these classes is that those of us who tend to come to these classes, we're the kind of kind people who desire something kinder on our planet. And we tend to be the ones that second guess ourselves. Oh, if I say this, will one person in the audience be offended? Oh, I better not say that. Whereas the people who are less kind, let's say, I mean, that's putting it mildly, but it's like we hear them on the news and things. It's like they just blah, blah, blah. They don't hesitate and second guess themselves generally in the way that we do. And so I love to say that us who actually desire something different from the world, becoming empowered to share what we know, it's really, really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well, good on you for being a leader in this area, because it's huge. I think it really does shift lives. Your shyness as a child, I mean, I had a very shy child, and debilitating. I mean, you don't learn to the same degree as others because you're just almost not able to take it in, right? So yes. Your experience of that to where you are now is quite drastic, I imagine.
I'm unrecognizable from who I used to be. And it's funny, isn't it? When we change, it's easy to forget where we came from. And I mean, years ago, there's no way that I would have been able to show up like this on a video podcast, or it would have just been completely outside of what was possible for me. And yet I always wanted to help people, empower people. And I'm so grateful that I have these tools to have more reach with it in a way, because that's the other thing that gets created with this class. It's like, yes, it's about the voice and speaking, but it's also about being willing to be heard. And I remember when I first became an energy healer, I created this, a friend helped me to create this amazing website, and it was just beautiful. And nobody was finding it, even though we had the right SEO and, the blog was this and that and the other. And finally, my friend helped me to see, oh, you're not willing to be seen. It's perfect. And you're not willing to have it seen. I was like, oh. And so you're nodding, it's like, and I think, and I mean, and it's still a journey for me. It's like, and this is one reason, but I love these tools. It's like, there's always more that we can step into. There's always, we can always be we can always reach more people and be seen more. And whilst it may be a journey that requires courage, it's also immensely rewarding.
Absolutely. When because you're, yeah, 100%, because you're stepping out to give, right? And at the same time, you're allowing, and all of those, yeah, it's great. I understand, because I feel like that doing this podcast, and it's, you can't worry about what they're going to say or people are going to judge, and, because they're going to do it anyways. Right. And so you have to just, not worry about all that stuff. And yeah, it's all very empowering when you walk through that fear and just start to live authentically, right?
Yes, and I know it's not logical, but when you think about it, stopping saying what is true to us and stopping living our lives in a way that we desire to live them, just because other people don't like it or don't like us, it's the height of craziness. And yet we're often programmed, I guess, to do that, to be really aware of other people's judgments. And stepping away from that can give so much freedom.
Well, and it starts so young, right? Like I have young kids still, I have old kids, young kids, I got lots of kids. And I see it in my children, like turn the music up when I pick up her from school, right? She does, how people see you or think of you. And I remember the saying, right? And where does all that come from? Society, I believe, right? You just, first of all, don't want to be seen. And if you are seen, you want to be seen in a certain way. And it's all just fear-based, right? It's, and it starts so young. And,
yes.
And what I've learned is that it's all based from what they've learned from us, right, at home or whatever, right? Bruce Lipton says everything, the foundation is from 0 to 5 or 0 to 7 is all based on what they saw and learned in their family, right? So,
yes.
So then that there's still some of that to work through for yourself when you're seeing your children walking through those kinds of feelings, right?
Yes. And it's funny, as I said, I'm not a parent, but I guess a lot of us have a tendency to judge ourselves anyway. And I imagine being a parent is the ideal possibility to totally judge yourself. And I mean, when I look at my friends, it's like I suppose I said this before, it's like so many of us are greater parents. It's like, I think the paradigm is changing, and I guess we continue to judge ourselves. We know that would be better, but actually, what if we acknowledge that it's already starting to change?
Yeah. Well, I think that, the perfect parent came into play, I don't know, a dozen years ago, right? And your child had to be in all of these things, and all these sports, and had to have this and that. And, if you're not driving to another activity or what, like, everybody's just so busy, and these poor children are exhausted, and they're trying to be enough because we're trying to get them to be enough so that we feel enough. And right, it just goes on and on and on, right? But
it's funny because it's like when we're talking about that being the perfect parent, it's like when you actually think about it, taking them to loads of events, probably, well, it's like, I guess I'm thinking about that connection that you have with your child and that way that you be with your child. And it's like, and that doesn't exclude taking them to all these places. But that's what I see with some of my friends. There's just a different way that they are day to day with their children from what I had growing up.
Yeah. I think that everybody's trying to do better, but I think we all still have a long ways to go, but it all comes from healing ourselves, right? I think we like to look at them, that we need to fix them, but we actually just need to look back towards it's all us. And when we fix us or we heal different parts of ourselves, then they just naturally heal. You know, that's been my journey, right? Is just healing myself so that my children can be healed as well, right? Because you
Which is amazing. And I guess it was Gandhi who said, be the change you desire to see in the world. And this is what I see. That, I mean, I have a different example that as I healed myself, my dad actually changed. Not that he died 18 months ago, but not that he would ever say, oh, Fiona, you know, you changed so much and I changed so much. He wouldn't see it in those terms. But during the last 5 years of his life, which was when I started to really empower myself and really, I guess, release what had happened in my childhood. As I released that, something you could say miraculous occurred, that he just became softer and kinder and more loving. And we had a connection that was, well, way more than anything. When most of our lives, we just shouted and found each other difficult, to be honest. And suddenly, towards the end of his life, we had this amazing time together. And that came about through me changing and him picking up on something from that.
Yeah, I've experienced that as well. It's pretty miraculous, isn't it?
It's like, I would never, and it's funny because it's like, I would say it's not a fairy story. It's like my dad had to choose to do that. It's like not everybody will. He could have stayed the same old as he always was, but something in him responded to that. So it's not like a fairy story that everybody around you will miraculously change. And when it does happen, it's just amazing. I mean, I am so grateful to have had that with my dad. I would never have thought that I would have had that.
I had a similar experience with my dad too. So you know what? Yeah, it is. It's really, really awesome when you show up differently, how other people are then able to show up differently as well. It gives almost like that permission, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you suggest for people to do if they want to seek out this area and
Yes. So if you're interested in the hands-on head treatments, then go to accessconsciousness.com and you can search for a practitioner or a facilitator in your area. And if you're interested in what I talked about with the voice, then you can go to my website, which is fionacutts.com. And you will see on there that I have well, if you're shy, I have a free resource for people who are shy, but I also have information about the classes that I offer online and in person.
Awesome. So you can do the voice stuff online through Zoom.
Yes, you can do the voice stuff online as well. Yes, you can.
Well, that's really exciting. I think that I'll be looking into that. I think that's really, really huge. And I understand how important it is to be able to speak. My first few podcasts were very, very, very scary. But the class, you know what, he was like, you post it. It was like, no, yes, you post it. It was like, oh my goodness me. And yeah, so I'm sure that, one day I'll be able to look back and laugh, but right now I can't even look back at them because I'm still working, right? But
I have a journey from me from. It is a journey. It is a journey.
Well, that's wonderful.
Thank
you so much for all this information. And
you're welcome.
And enjoy Croatia. Are you Are you at the beach? It's supposed to be just beautiful there.
It's absolutely beautiful, and we've had some really warm weather in the middle of the day. It's like it's quite cool at night, and we've had really blue skies and warm weather. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Doesn't that sound amazing? We're just coming into winter here, so that just sounds like heaven to me.
Yeah, it is, because it will get colder here as well into December. So it's kind of an autumn sunshine gift.
I love it. Okay, well, we're going to catch up with you probably down the road, and I'm going to get your information so it's posted with our video for our viewers to be able to find you, find Access Consciousness, and check out and see if they can heal in the same way that you were able to.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy.
Have a great rest of your day. We really appreciate
Thank you.
it.